I will go however long I want.
Ooh.
It's not true.
Were you not listening, Legion?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh god, he's made it worse. He made it weirder.
The worst part about that is like 10 seconds ago, I said I am exhausted, which means as long as I want is about 30 seconds. The two of you could discuss it while I snore into my microphone.
No one can find the mute button.
You can shed blood bowling?
You probably could, yeah. Who do you think you are? I am.
What do you think he meant by combat sports?
Yeah. You're so American. Oh, Legion. Doesn't understand the ways of the old continent.
Before we begin, the Gamer's Advocate would like to remind you that any episode could contain game spoilers, so watch or listen with discretion. And now your hosts, AMKomnenos, Banana, and Legion. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to yet another episode of the Gamer's Advocate podcast. I'd like to welcome AMKomnenos, BananaHammockRepublic.
I'm glad that's the one we're going with.
Yeah, we're going. Roll.
I was doing really good until the fourth time y'all stopped me, so.
Film was expensive. Keep rolling.
And myself, Legion. We're going over.
Yeah, not many people know that we record these on film. That's why the editing is such a nightmare for Legion.
Yeah, and not many people know that we also record these very early in the morning for at least me and Banana. It's
That's true.
Full daylight.
Noon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm sitting here at pretty midday.
Yeah. So we come into today's episode and Banana says, man, I am exhausted. I am tired. So guess what topic we immediately thought of? Sleep. So many games offer sleep as an option. Sometimes it's just a mechanic. Some, like Banana, it's very immersive.
I don't like sleeping in games because it reminds me of that thing I can't do in real life.
Do you have insomnia? Do you suffer from insomnia?
Oh yeah.
Really?
I have acute insomnia. So anytime things get like stressful, I am awake the entire time until things get sorted out. So I've gone like weeks without sleep before, and it is awful. I don't recommend it.
My doctor neither. He's quite clear on this.
Yeah, there's a reason, you get tired. It's because you're supposed to sleep every day.
Explain it to me, Pop. Yeah, I think I get the opposite. Like if things are really stressful, really overwhelming, my instinct is more, not instinct, but
I'm gonna go take a nap.
Yeah, it's more just, fuck this. I'm going to bed. That's it, and I'll just go there, and then it's a bit like fast travel or skipping time in a game. I can deal with this in 10 hours time when that office opens. I guess I'm going to bed. Press T, rest 9 hours, take a shower, go to the place.
Well, I guess when we go to war, I'm going to be up planning. Calm is taking a nap, and Banana's already exhausted.
Yeah. Well, that's the other part of having this, like having insomnia be a pretty regular part of my experience is that like I just know how to operate when I am exhausted. So there's not like a noticeable decline in my ability to function.
Oh, jeez.
I'm just always operating at that very low level.
Yeah, he's cruising. He's just coasting. It's like when you have like that, when you're doing that long road trip, you really don't know where that next gas station is. You're like, I ain't speeding. I'm coasting.
Yeah. How do I maximize fuel efficiency until we refuel, and then I'm going to floor it again?
What is the sweet spot for fuel consumption? We were always taught that it was something around like 90 kilometers an hour, somewhere about there in your highest available gear in a standard car. It's like, I think it's like 60 mph, something like that. Yeah,
right around there. I think it's I imagine it varies from make and model, but yeah, I have to imagine it's right in that range. And the transmission in your car will also make a big difference, depending on how many gears your transmission actually has.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had heard a long time ago that the reason why the speed limit across the states was 55 was because they were trying to conserve fuel back then when the law was created. And that's where
55.
Yeah.
Oh, that is slow.
Sammy Hagar said that he can't drive 55.
That was the first thing that popped into my head when you said 55, and I was just like, it's not a reference that's going to land with everybody.
Is that really? So, is this in his Van Halen days, or is Sammy Hagar? Okay. See, when you say 55 for music, for me it goes to Tom Waits, all 55.
For me, Tom Waits is always The Piano Has Been Drinking.
Tom Waits is so good. I don't know how often we talk about Tom Waits and Sammy Hagar in the same same breath. But I mean, I like
classic pairing.
Yeah.
You remember that album they did together, the Christmas songs?
I'd listen to that.
Me too. Santa Claus is drunk again.
Rudolph has been drinking. That's how Grandma got ran over.
Oh. Imagine that as just a 20-minute prog epic. But it actually doesn't change much. It's just the same 4 chords over and over.
Grandma got ran over by Van Halen. Yeah.
It's Sad-Eyed Lady of the Lowlands, but depressing. More depressing than Sad-Eyed Lady of the Lowlands.
Yeah. You know, and in sleep, coming back to this topic of sleep. We have
about 2 minutes ago, right?
Yeah,
I was going to say, guys, get back on topic,
Nah,
and then I saw a chance to talk about Tom Waits. I was like, oh no, I'll just push us further off the track. Yeah, let's keep going.
Yeah, speaking of sleep. No, I really appreciate that. In some cases, the sleep mechanic is more of a delivery device for the storytelling. And the first one that came to mind, we talked very briefly before all this, was Oblivion. More when it's like you get a skill level, whatever, and you just, advance that. But more, Oblivion took the time to say, yeah, we got a level here ready for you based on whatever you've done. However, I like the remastered version of leveling. That's a different story, but it's still, at the time you rest is when you cap your level and you're able to advance those stats. And it does tell a story in between too. There's a nice little narrative that you can read between each level, and it's immersive in that you are discovering yourself. Granted, you're already kind of the chosen one from the very beginning, but you begin to discover who you are in the process through those sleep periods. And that is one of the only games I know of that actually took the time to say, yeah, you already know where the story's going, but we're going to kind of hopefully tell the story along the way too. So
actually, one of my favorites for sleep in a game and actually having a narrative role, because I think sleep, it depends on the kind of game you're talking about. So initially, the very first things I thought of were just open world games, and I'm thinking of a game like Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain, where you can sleep. He doesn't sleep in the field, but he has his electronic cigar, and when he sits and takes in his cigar, time passes just like he was sleeping. And the main reason you're doing this is so that nighttime comes, so that you can sneak in a bit easier. It's just taking advantage of the gameplay mechanic. But the game that really stood out to me as using sleep in a really cool, interesting narrative way is the good Baldur's Gate 1. Just remembering those moments when every now and again, the moments when every now and again, you'd have that anticipation of, oh wait, shit, I've just done something big in the last 20 minutes, half an hour, whatever it might be. If I click sleep now, is there going to be a dream sequence? And that real satisfaction when you did get one. And I loved using those as storytelling, because it's not in any way difficult to understand what's going on in those dreams, especially after the first 3 or 4. It's really clear where we're going, so it's not completely opaque. But it's just a little obtuse, it's a little peculiar, it's a little interesting. And they were just at these nice intervals, sort of every, 4 or 5 hours, I'd imagine, maybe a bit more often, depending on which part of the game you were at. But they were always interesting, always fun. And they were spaced so far out that it was just always exciting when it popped up. And it's a game where I've always found that in any of these D&D or AD&D inspired games, resting just feels really goofy to me. I've just had a fight, sleep again. And now, fight 20 meters away from the first one, sleep again. It just feels weird. It actually pulls me out of the game ever so slightly, even though, especially on higher difficulties, you kind of have to. despite that, in the game, when you had those rests and the narrative came along with it, I just thought that was the coolest thing.
I actually think we were kind of talking about something very similar to this in a recent discussion Legion and I were having for the episode we did surrounding cooking. And the way that Final Fantasy games typically don't ever require you to sleep. You sleep to kind of regain your health. You can use a tent and set up camp and regain everybody's health. But like, you have spells and other items, so you don't ever really need to sleep exactly. But in Final Fantasy 15, you set up camp pretty much every night because traveling at night in that game is awful. And I think I explained in that episode, like, I normally would hate that if a game is like, oh yeah, it's nighttime, go to bed. I'm like, no, we're on an adventure. I want to progress that story. I want to like just do whatever it is that is unique to that story. I don't want to like a real life simulator built into my fantasy adventure game. But in Baldur's Gate 1, it definitely worked, partly because of the D&D mechanics where it's like, all right, my mage used all of his spell slots and is now absolutely worthless. Let's take a long rest. And then to pair that with the storytelling, and maybe after this dream sequence, I'll have a cool new ability.
Yeah.
That was an extra little bonus in Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, where you take a rest and your character wakes up and suddenly they are more capable. That's not a thing I've seen in many other games since then.
I think it's a thing that we've talked about it before, or I've heard it said often enough before. I'm sure I've heard Banana say it, but anything you do in a game, or anything that you make available in the game, you've got to give me a reason to do it. If it just is a thing that happens for no benefit to me or no interesting challenge, whatever it might be, if it's just a thing that happens, it's not really a part of the game. It's just a thing that's taking place that I now have no choice in or whatever. But if you give me something like a sleep mechanic in this case, if we think of just Baldur's Gate, I didn't like it when it was just about my mage has no spell slots left, I have to rest so that my mage isn't shit anymore. But I really liked the bits when it was, oh, I can sleep now, my character, yeah, I get a bit of story, and my character gets a bit of reward. And you're right, yeah, I forgot about that. You get like slow poison and cure light wounds and things like that via this mechanic. And it just makes it so much more interesting. And I think Final Fantasy 15 is a great example of that as well. Where Final Fantasy 15, you sleep so that you can get EXP bonuses, you sleep so that you can get combat bonuses via the food, and also you sleep so that you can get like these little moments sometimes as well, and it's really cool just to watch the little scenes from setting up their camping tents. And every now and again, you just get a bit of extra dialogue. And we've talked before about how that game is the road trip game. It's a simulation of a road trip which just happens to take place in the Final Fantasy world. When we put that idea of just having that little bit of extra time with the characters into the context of this is a road trip game, it's actually another part of the game. It's not another level per se, but it's another system in the game, and it works so goddamn well.
Yeah, I think that was the other part of it that we were talking about with the cooking in Baldur's Gate. When you go to camp and rest in Baldur's Gate 3, you have the opportunity to you have that small window when you've committed to a long rest, but you haven't gone to sleep yet, where you go around and talk to the members of your camp, and you have unique conversations that only happen in those moments. This system, this long rest and the cooking that you do as part of that is your opportunity to connect with your companions in Final Fantasy 15, in Baldur's Gate 3. And it's a solid way, I think, for the developers to take something that is very much a game mechanic. Like, I don't want to travel at night. It's a nightmare. We'll take a rest. We'll wait for the clock to move forward, and we'll pick it up in the morning. And then they pair that with, well, if we're taking a break, let's take a break. Let's talk to our companions. Let's develop that interpersonal story while the main story is on hold.
I think it's a very, to me, it's a very BioWare trope. It's not them exclusively, but I associate it so much with their games, going off to camp and speaking to people in Dragon Age, going back to the Normandy and speaking to people in Mass Effect, going back in, okay, not Baldur's Gate 3, obviously, but you definitely have the same tradition of just go back to camp. And I think it's one of those interesting points where a game is very much, it's beholden to the mechanics that the designers make. So if you make a very strict narrative-based game, the designer can set you in this, you can set you on these rails and say, okay, you're going to have this happen, then this is going to happen, then you're going to take a break, then this is going to happen, then you're going to take a break, then this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, then you're going to take a break, and then we're going to escalate and have the final, so the crescendo and the game's going to end, and it's going to be beautifully narratively based. As soon as your game's more open world, you don't necessarily get that, because you don't know what order the dumbass player is going to do this in. They could do everything in essentially the wrong order, in which case they just knackered your narrative, they've ruined it. Having these little incentives to come back to camp every now and again and just take a breather is an interesting way for the designers to be able to pace your play when they can't actually control the way that you're playing it. And if they're doing this, then yeah, they have to give you something that's worth your while, because I'm not going to go just take a sleep in Final Fantasy 15 if it doesn't do anything for me. If I could just be traveling the world anyway, why would I go and do this? But if you give me character interactions, if you give me an XP bonus, if you give me, normally in older games this would be more of a thing, but a chance to empty my inventory a bit, get rid of some stuff, put that away, that sort of shit. Just give me a chance to take stock of what I just did. Because so much of the enjoyment of things that you do in life, I think the reason films function so well for being an hour and a half, 2 hours long, is you have your hour and a half, your 2 hours, and then you get a chance to reflect on it. Oh, it's done. Just think back to that. If something is just going on forever, you don't ever get that moment to reflect on what you just did and why that thing you just did was cool. And if something is constantly just amazing, 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 at some point you're just fatigued. Go and watch any long piece of entertainment, like real life. Go outside, go to the theater, go watch a wrestling show, right? A wrestling show is going to be 3-4 hours long. They're always going to have, sorry to the lower card talent, they're always going to have the piss break matches, because they know if you've just had an amazing match beforehand, you can't have another one straight after. Because the crowd has already burst. They've thrown their energy out cheering for this match. Oh, they need some downtime. And just having something like a camping feature in a game can give you a chance to do that. You can say, wow, you just did this amazing thing. Come on, let's go back to camp. Let's calm down. Characters can talk about that cool thing you just did. And in 15 minutes, we're back on the road. In 15 minutes, we can go fight another boss.
Interesting to use sleep in a game as a mechanic to accomplish what sleep actually does in real life. Like, shut down your brain for a second, organize the data that you've taken in, and then once that's done, we'll get back to it.
These designers are so clever.
So, with Baldur's Gate, I've talked to death about how the originals, would attack it very differently for a lot of different things. And one of them that I go over and over again is the mind's eye. So when you're at camp in Baldur's Gate...
The thing I go over and over again is the mind's eye, and I'm thinking, I've never fucking heard him talk about this.
Yeah.
Like, I've been talking about loads of things.
He's brought it up a lot.
I don't know where this is going. Hold on, I'm going to Google it. Keep talking.
I've made whole videos on it, and I'm going to bring up one right now. So the difference between Baldur's Gate, the original ones, and Baldur's Gate 3 is that Baldur's Gate 3, you have two camps that see the way that they discovered things, the way that the devs actually presented their story very differently from the original one. The original one is more bookish. It's more like you read it and then you imagine it. And that's why there's a lot of people who are in the old school camp who love that presentation, because they think that whatever they built is the most beautiful thing that you could possibly make, because it's just not something that you can visually represent. The Baldur's Gate 3 went from a perspective of, we're going to kind of take everything that the original thing did and we're going to give it a visual representation of it. And so a lot of people like to see that, and they're more immersed because they're being told a story versus actually, thinking of the story for themselves. And both are fine. Both are very legitimate. Now, one thing I did in one of my videos, the more recent one with Jaheira, is that I took those camp scenes and I had a discussion between Khalid Jaheira and my main character that didn't exist in the game. And I created a story to kind of go along to kind of help push the narrative. And that's what you could do in the, blink of an eye in your brain, what's going on at the campsite, what you may be thinking is going on. So it actually lets you tell your story, even if you're not actually sitting there thinking, okay, this is what I think these two, but you do have some connection to your characters. You can imagine what's going on in those scenes. And that's the difference, I think, with the old Baldur's Gate, and why I really appreciate those, because you're able to it's a blank canvas. You're able to kind of project whatever you want to during those moments of downtime.
Yeah, I definitely think that was a big part of Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 for me. And I think overwhelmingly for the audience is because of the limitations with technology, a lot of older games in that era had to present you with just enough for you to build a foundation, or for you to build on the foundation they provided, and you would create almost your personalized experience internally, just presented with like the bare minimum that the developers gave you. And I can understand why a lot of like retro gamers or people who grew up playing games in that area or that era really appreciate that, because every game kind of naturally had a significant impact on you because of that. And we don't see that as much now because, well, developers have more technology available to them. They can show you more, and it almost feels like they should. And I don't know if I really agree with that conclusion, but I do believe the overwhelming audience would be really disappointed if modern developers gave you a foundation and just told you to imagine the rest.
Well, yeah, I think that's, especially when we look back and do games in the last 20, 30 years, or probably longer now. We're probably talking more closer to 30 years and 25 years than we are 20. I think 20 years ago, we're talking sort of 2005. We were actually quite far into our game development world. But if we go back 30 years, the reason that we didn't do these things, ultimately, for most projects, was going to be a lack of processing power, a lack of development time. And you can have some projects which make an artistic choice. You have games like, it's not the same topic exactly, but games like Myst are very minimalist. They could have done a lot more if they'd have wanted to, but they didn't want to. That was the whole point. In the same way that something like Outer Wilds today, they could have done a lot more if they'd have wanted to, but they didn't, because they had enough to make the experience they desired to make. But a lot of games, the reason that they would not do certain things is simply they couldn't. They didn't have the manpower, didn't have the relatively simple development cycles, they didn't have these large engines that you could simply sort of reach out into the world for and populate them with asset packs and knowledge from developers who've built on what you did before. We were building everything from the ground up. Well, kind of. If the reason we didn't do this stuff 30 years ago was because we simply couldn't, it does feel weird that we would choose not to today. It feels like the natural development is just, yeah, of course we should, because the reason we weren't was because we couldn't. So why wouldn't we do it now? But again, I'm with you. I'm not sure it always actually necessarily is a good idea, but you can see where the logic comes from.
Yeah, I definitely, it feels like that super obvious conclusion, but when you think about it, you sacrifice something that I feel like gets dismissed when you just accept it as the obvious conclusion. There is value to that personalized feeling you get when as the gamer, you're the one imagining the scenario and how it's playing out, rather than being presented with every detail.
It'd also be a really hard sell, though, isn't it? Like when you're putting your game out there, like, here's most of the game, you do the rest. It's a peculiar one. You'd have to find a way to really.
How do you market that your player is the graphical processor?
Look, our game has nothing. Fill the gaps.
Baldur's Gate 3 did an extra thing with the dream sequences too, because instead of having dream sequences like in Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, they added a aspect that would visit you. And so you always had to come back and say, am I really seeing what I'm seeing. But they took that time during your rest periods, during your sleep periods. And so, again, they took a lot of the old things that happened in the original games and they just kind of expanded on it. So it's great when you hit. When you do it well, nobody blinks an eye, but it's also a risk. I will give Larian the road on that one. It's a risk. If you don't hit right, everybody's going to criticize you for it. But if you do it right, then you get...
Criticizing video games on the internet. I don't see that happening.
But yeah, sleep, it involves a lot of storytelling. You see it quite often in mechanics like Stardew, for instance, you progress from one day to the next. I know I played a ton of Traveler's Rest, and the thing about that game is you get these VIPs that show up from time to time, and then when you're trying to start off early and you need the money, and you're like, I know I want to make something related to pumpkins because that'll sell more money, but I don't have the money to buy seeds for pumpkins. Well, the VIP is coming tomorrow, so let's just get everything ready so I can get that, because then they'll bring more money in, so then you can buy those seeds and so on and so on. But the way you advance the day is very similar to a lot of other Stardew games, that if you're after 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, whatever the time frame is, if you don't do it, you'll pass out from exhaustion. But the day will end. But if you actually rest, you'll have that extra bonus or something going into the next day. But
it still fascinates me that we refer to it as Stardew type games and not Harvest Moon type games. I don't mean this in a bad way. I think it's incredible that they managed to be that successful with Stardew Valley, that it's essentially supplanted in the popular consciousness the game that really gave it life. Again, I don't think it's a bad thing. I just think it's a reflection of an amazing achievement. That now all of those shorthands that when we first played Stardew, we would have said, oh, this is like Harvest Moon. Oh, this is like Harvest Moon. And now all these games that follow Stardew, we just say, oh yeah, this is like Stardew.
Yeah,
so well done to that developer.
It's just the public saying, we're tired of Nintendo. We're going to move on.
We're never tired. They just released more Mario Kart. We're never tired.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, there are pieces of Nintendo that I think a lot of us are tired of, but Nintendo overall, I think nostalgia is doing a lot of heavy lifting there to make us all a little bit more patient with them.
Oh, their products are great. Their games are wonderful. It's the company that's just evil.
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly it.
Is it Gamers Advocate hot take? Nintendo's corporate practices are evil? Yeah, take that.
Yeah. What a hot take that is.
Yeah. Also, Stop Killing Games is a good petition. You should sign it. Yeah.
Yeah. Nintendo got to be the first company to ever say that the actual console you own, you don't even own that. It's one thing for the games. They extended that to the console. Wow.
But I will say with the sleeping mechanics in games, you see it in those Harvest Moon type games that
Thank you.
That is your method for progressing from day to day. And very frequently you will see that using sleep as a mechanic for advancing within, like a calendar year or something. And that's how you divide up those days. There are events tied to specific days in games like Graveyard Keeper. There are certain NPCs that you can only interact with on specific days of the week. But I also see the same mechanic more or less implemented in Minecraft. And that's an interesting one because you are almost encouraged to stay awake forever in Minecraft because the resources available to you during the day are not the same things as the resources available to you at night. So at night, monsters spawn, and pretty much every monster in the game can drop an item. So there are specific items that you can only get by staying awake at night and going out and fighting monsters. And that's a really kind of interesting take on that to me. The idea that we put in this day-night cycle, and if you want the day to start over, you just go to bed at night. You'll sleep through all of the monster spawns and you won't have to worry about them. But they drop items that you'll need to progress. So maybe you should stay awake.
I think the way that I was understanding it in the first moments you were describing the game was it almost feels as though the daytime when you're playing is the sleep part of the game. There's no monsters to worry about. You can just spend your time preparing mentally, physically for what's coming up in the evening. And then the nighttime is when the real adventuring is happening. I wanted to sort of piggyback onto it with a separate point as well, unless Legion wants to add anything specifically to that.
He wasn't listening.
Though.
What? Where are we? What?
Help!
Who am I?
I think there's a relationship between sleeping in a game that's very, very different depending on the kind of game you're playing. And if you think about Minecraft, or you think about Metal Gear Solid 5, and then you think about Stardew Valley, and the stupid game Legion plays with the tavern.
Yep.
Traveler's Rest.
That's the one.
Oblivion?
There's
Mass Effect.
Yes, I meant all of them. Thank you. There's a difference between those types of games is that the calendar means something. If I play Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain, and there are some occasions when time passing matters, there are some, but if the game takes place in circa 1984, wherever it is, I could go into free roam on the world map and I could sleep.
Interesting choice of year.
And I could sleep 365 times. And I'm going to be almost exactly 1 year later, because 1984 is a leap year. But I'm going to be almost exactly 1 year later, and nothing in the game has changed. Nothing. The outside political situation hasn't changed. We're still going to be fighting in the same war zone, no matter what's happening in the real world. Nothing changes. But in Stardew Valley, every day is different to what came before. Every single day. So if you sleep through a day, you essentially miss out on a whole part of the game. If you sleep through a whole goddamn year, you've missed out on the game. Not a part of the game, but you missed out on the game in its entirety. So it also needs to be considered just how different the idea of sleep is in a game where each day is as unique or not unique, depending on the development. Stardew Valley, every day is unique. Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain, every day isn't really unique. Sleeping is just a mechanic. Stardew Valley, it's a mechanic, but it's a lot more than that as well.
Yeah, and then there's games like Star Wars, Jedi Fallen Order or whatever, where you meditate. It's a form of sleep, but
Yep.
They treat it almost like I guess like a bonfire in Dark Souls. In
It's
many
exactly
ways,
like a bonfire in Dark Souls. Yeah.
As a method for you to tell the story because you are a Jedi meditating. There's an actual function for it. There's a reason for it. Why it has to be that spot, don't know.
But yeah, that never made sense to me.
I think that's one of those things you've hit on there as a brief aside, is sleeping in video games can have all sorts of different meanings. Oftentimes, the sleep isn't even really part of it. Dragon Age, you go to camp. Effectively, we're sleeping. Mass Effect, you go hang around on the Normandy for a bit. Effectively, in terms of video game understanding, we're sleeping. We're going off and we're taking a break. We come back fully healed and we've had our protagonist dialogue. Super. It's just the word sleep in video game isn't really a direct descriptive term. It's a set of things that then exist below it, and all of them fit under the umbrella of sleeping.
It's your mechanism for pausing the main story and doing anything else.
Exactly.
And I'm surprised. I'm almost proud of you for not mentioning the other mechanic that sleeping provides you. And in Mass Effect and Baldur's Gate 3, it's your mechanism for having sex.
Oh, baby. Tell me more. Legion, we're back.
We got him back.
Earmuffs.
Got the widest opening in his fingers.
Yeah.
Can't hear a thing over the headphones.
Yes. But yeah, I mean, that's your additional avenue of storytelling in both of those games, is to give your players that romance option for kind of making a more complete character. You're not just going to focus on the adventure. Maybe your character has a romance arc that you want them to experience. Sleeping is kind of a part of that, even if, again, you're not actually sleeping.
Gotta sleep at some point. I mean,
That's why Banana's been up for days. There you go. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah. Oh,
The
moaning constantly.
I do like that I explained at the beginning of this episode that it's insomnia, so it's stress induced. Legion's
I'm
like,
stressed at that point too. I'd be
Yeah.
worn out.
When will this end? When can I get some rest?
When will these friction burns disappear?
Getting a little too detailed at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, with Dragon Age Origins, of course, you always go at night, so it's a little bit of extra. So you may not actually sleep there, because a lot of times I get a lot of impressions that people think of the Dragon Age Origins like camp scene as more of like that's the rest scene. It really isn't. It's just a transitional scene, and because it's always at night, it just kind of leans into it. So you could actually go do whatever you're doing, travel to your camp, do whatever you're doing, travel to your camp, never rest.
Well,
but it sets the scene like it, you know.
The other modern example of that is, and you do ultimately have to rest there, but in practice, it's just a transitional screen, is Expedition 33, Clair Obscur. The camp that you have there, it does exactly what a camp should do. I've got a hot take on that for another episode, by the way. It's got a camp feature in that you go and you refocus. Especially early in the game, you have to go there to make your upgrades for your characters, that kind of thing. You go there to have your individual dialogues with the characters, like you always do in these BioWare games. And you can go there and literally in the menu have an option of, what am I supposed to be doing? Just that little refocus. And I think, even though that's very on the nose, and they could just have put it in the menu, because for fuck's sake, that game's UI, awful. Even though they could have just put it in the menu on the map, just you're doing this now. They actually show quite literally what the camp should be for. It's a moment to just reflect, take a second, get some dialogue, refocus before we move on and we play the next part of the game. So yeah, for all of its flaws, its camp, I think, is the perfect example of what sleeping in a game should be.
Yeah, because you can advance character, party, what is it?
Relationships.
Relationship stuff. Just having those conversations. Now, it's not a tricky... The thing about Expedition 33, I kept thinking they do have some branching dialogues with some of those scenes, but you're never going to fail anything, really.
No, it's... It reminds me of one friend of ours, Jem, when she was playing Final Fantasy VII. Every now and again, you get a dialogue option, and she was saying, which one? And I had to say, don't let paralysis take you over here. It's going to ultimately make either no difference, or very, very little. You can pretty much just decide.
The number of dialogue choices in that game where you can choose either option, and the game does not change at all. The next statement is exactly the same. Like, there's no difference whatsoever. It's not even you get a slightly different response. It's exactly the same.
It's the Fallout 4 of 1997.
Yeah. Which is wildly different from BioWare games, because the BioWare games, you can technically fail them early on. You could if you wanted a certain relationship with a certain character, if you said something or another and they didn't like, because they were unique characters. Oh, yeah. There wasn't some open.
I mean, when it comes to failing at relationship, I know all too well exactly how easily that can be done.
Hence the string of people waiting at the front door for raw, unfiltered animal sex. But this is where the game is a different kind of game, and like, even though we loosely branch them under RPG because it's a simple, easy term, they're so different, and that term is so broad, to the point that, like we said before, many of these terms ultimately become really meaningless outside of just extremely wide definition. If you call a game an action game, an adventure game, an RPG, half of these cross over. Half of these are the same damn thing on any single day. And even things that became more and more specific, like things like Souls-like. For a short while after Dark Souls was released, I mean, this really probably meant something. But now it doesn't, because over time, that definition has expanded rather greatly. But you just see the different kind of games that they are there, where Final Fantasy VII, your dialogue changes nothing, except for some very minor dating mechanics, and that's it. Baldur's Gate 3, if I go with 3, your dialogue can change so much. But the reason is because in Baldur's Gate 3, that was supposed to be the case. Final Fantasy was never supposed to be. What option you pick here is dictating what happens next. It was always just, let's give the player something to do in this menu. It's been a while. There's nothing more than that. And I did, by the way, think of another example of sleep in a game that I think is incredibly well done, and it's from Final Fantasy VII. And it's when you go to sleep in the Shinra Tower jail. And I think there's a beautiful transition there where they do the same thing that we've discussed before. It's about setting the stage for a new scene coming up. You take a quick break so that we can hit you now with the next part. And I think the first really, really great, or one of the first great tonal shifts in that game happens when your character says, okay, we're in a bad situation. Let's go to sleep and sort of like, think this over, see what we can do tomorrow. And when you wake up, the situation just got a whole lot worse. And it's a beautiful tonal shift where everything alters. We fade to black, we fade back in, and we got different music. The map's different. The people are reacting differently. Something's wrong.
There's blood everywhere.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
It's funny that you bring up a game where sleeping isn't really all that important and point out one of the ways that it was done so very well, because I'm thinking of the exact opposite situation in Baldur's Gate 3, where sleeping is hugely important, but one of the ways that it wasn't done well is that you're not forced to sleep at regular intervals unless you're looking for, spell slots and things along those lines. And there are a lot of things that are tied to the number of times you take a long rest. So for me, one of the last achievements that I got in the game was petting the owlbear cub and Scratch at the same time, because I never took enough long rests for that story to progress, because there was always a higher priority cutscene that played out in the camp for me. And that was something that drove me nuts. Like, the number of things that are tied to the long rests not actually matching up with the number of long rests I played before beating the game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I missed out on story because I was too effective in combat and didn't need to rest regularly.
Yeah, that's the difference of how Banana approached Baldur's Gate 3 versus how I did it. I'm like, I'm going to do this over and over and over. So I took it slow.
I've opened a cupboard. Sleep.
Yeah, I took it very slow. So I actually did that achievement fairly early on because I slept a lot.
That was the last one I got.
But that goes against the narrative, because again, I was trying to go against the grain. I'm like, how far can I push this story? I wasn't trying to break the game, but I was trying to see how far can we push this? How many cutscenes can we get from Act 1? I was doing a bunch of that stuff, so.
And I was definitely leaning more towards that, like, I don't want to use resources unless I have to. So, like, the way I would do combat is a lot of cantrips for my spellcasters, a lot of not using those limited resources that only recharge on a long rest for my other classes. And I was concerned that there might be not enough camp supplies for me to rest as frequently as I wanted to. So I was doing this kind of like maximizing the efficiency tied to long rests for no reason, because that game is definitely built with way more camp supplies than you will ever need. And story progression tied to just taking more long rests than I thought I needed. So, like, I played it wrong. That thing we always say, there's no wrong way to play Baldur's Gate. I found a way.
That lends credence to like the way I did it to what Banana is saying, because actually Banana played it probably right, because I'm literally trying to do this thing that I know is not the norm, and that allows me to squeeze out as much content from that particular act as possible, whatever act I'm in. And that's not normal, because the narrative is trying to push you toward this urgency, and I'm going against the grain. So the Banana is doing it the right way. I knew what I was doing, but that's how I was able to kind of get some of those scenes to
kiss already. You both did it the right way. Jesus.
Well, we have talked about that before in video gaming, where the narrative urgency and the gameplay mechanics don't match up. And that was definitely one of those situations where it's like, we don't know how many days we have left before Ceramorphosis occurs and we're, a mindless mind flayer again. I'm rushing through I'm exploring everywhere and trying to gather as much resources as possible, but I am refusing to take long rests and risk that thing because the narrative is telling me that's a bad idea, but the gameplay is necessitating that. You're giving me two conflicting messages here. It's
not really a spoiler. Does it matter how many long rests you take? No. Generally speaking, when you're in Act 1, you could stay in there for 1,000 in-game years, and actually nothing's going to happen until you hit a certain story beat, and that's going to cause the advance of your condition.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not going to play it, but it's good to know.
Yeah. So I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up another example of games that are two sides of the same coin. You take things like Dave the Diver and Dredge, who both of them do sleep very differently. With Dredge, it's all about the sleep mechanic. It's all about it because your lack of sleep, you start seeing visions, start seeing nightmares. And I know Com didn't really care for Dredge, but that's not ridiculous. The point. Yeah.
No, I didn't care for the music in Dredge. The music was god awful.
I loved everything about Dredge. You're not wrong about the music, but I think it was meant to be.
I don't mind you telling me I'm wrong. It's okay.
Well,
I loved everything in Dredge. Actually, you know what? The music did suck.
No, I like the music too. It's just that I think it was meant to be dreary. And it was kind of like just pulling you along.
If they were going for shit, they really hit the they really hit the nail on the head.
Fucking crushed it.
Yeah, it wasn't meant to be an upbeat melody by any means. But no, you're definitely starting to have these visions, and you're encouraged that you want to sleep. But then as you push that envelope a little bit, you start to kind of, I didn't see that over there, and then you get something unique from that experience. And so by not sleeping, you're actually able to kind of get some things to show, but it's not always consistent. There is some variety to it. And then in Dave the Diver, it's very much like just the day ends. It's kind of like the Stardew type calendar system. However, the difference is that you have nighttime fishing and you have daytime fishing, and then it's just a reset. And you do feel like every time a day goes by in Dave the Diver, you feel like it's a new day. Okay, I'm going to get this accomplished today. It feels good when that day turns over. But yeah.
I think that's exactly the Stardew mechanic. You still have those evening differences. You can do night fishing in Stardew and you get different fish. You've got the different weather conditions from one day to another. You've got the different seasons. So yeah, I think those two actually have much more in common than you might think of immediately. Dredge walks this really fine line that I love actually in games, and with a certain mechanic, and I believe it's tiredness, where you're encouraged to sort of ride that tiredness wave, because if you play the game as easy as you can, only go out in daytime, only go out well rested, only go in safe waters, well, you can fish for a while, and that's great. But if you do let your madness sort of slightly increase, if you do let your fatigue grow up, well, now you're walking that fine line between, oh shit, there's actually really bad things out here, but the high value stuff's here too. And the progress is here now as well. And I love it when a game does that, when it lets you sort of decide your difficulty and it's molding to you as and how you play it. I think it's outstanding stuff. It's just the music sucks. The rest is really, really, really good.
Funny you say like you really like that in games. Like I fucking hate that in games, and I don't think it's a bad game mechanic. I just don't like the tension. I don't like the fact that I need to be a bit reckless in order to experience the full game and get the rewards I'm looking for.
Yeah, I think Dredge is one of those Lovecraft games that are more of a Lovecraft games than actual games that are labeled Lovecraft, because it's this mystery that's out there, this thing that you don't know about. That's the whole, what is it, thalassophobia, or the big things in the sea. They're out there.
Thalassophobia.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is entirely correct. I think it's one of those interesting things about Lovecraftian as an idea. It's a word that we tend to massively overuse just as soon as something is a bit mysterious. Lovecraftian? Not really. It's a very, very specific...
Everything that has tentacles.
Yeah. Oh, look how Lovecraftian it is. It's
yeah.
The most Lovecraftian games I've probably played are probably Bloodborne and Dredge. It is that lack of knowing. It's the lack of understanding, and it's the sense that something out there is bigger than what we are. Essentially, we're nothing more than a fly in the ointment. Or we're not even the fly. An unnoticeable microscopic creature crawling across the eyelash of these figures in the game. And yeah, both of them just had a very special and unique feeling. And Dredge in particular, look, it was a very, very good game. My beef with it is that very specific thing. It's the same as my beef with Clair Obscur. My beef with Clair Obscur is very much just if you would sort out your UI, if you had done a bit more quality control in how you not interpret, what's the word? The receiver of something interprets information. Communicate. If you did a better job of communicating, that's a bad word to forget actually, the information that you were putting out there, and were a bit more user-friendly, you'd be so close to perfect. It just so happens that for Dredge, it's the music.
Because it's funny, like we're talking about sleep. Like I could listen to the music in Dredge and it will calm me and it will actually almost put me to sleep. But you're right, it's not engaging, it's not great, it's not good music. It's just, it does the job for the scenes that it's setting. It's a very lulling.
I mean, does it? I don't know that the scenes that are set in Dredge are ever like, oh, now it's cozy, sleepy time.
It's very yawning. It's a very yawning type sound when you're on the boat. It's not like, oh, we're going boating now. It's not like at the beginning of like Jaws when you're like, oh, we're hitting the seas. It's always that melotone type sound. So yeah,
we'll do a group stream session one day of it. We'll play some Dredge together.
Yeah.
That'd be fun, actually. I think I'd really enjoy that.
I don't think you can co-op it, but yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
No, I'll play it somewhat.
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
it's just calm playing Dredge, Legion's asleep, and I'm just sitting there like, no, don't do that. No, you're doing it wrong.
Legion starts off really bright-eyed, but 10 minutes in with the music, he just...
I love this music. I love this music. This is my favorite part. It's the part that does it every 20 seconds.
Just in time to hear Cobb say, God, I fucking hate this game.
What do I do?
That's all we got time for.
I don't have the mutant bluegill.
God, he's being specific, Banana. Stop him.
Yes. Listen, we don't actually have to get into the details here. We just, lie to people and convince them that we know shit about games.
Yeah, I played Dredge loads. Loads of it.
Yeah, that's...
#gaming.
Yeah. My last point about sleeping in games is that every time I see a day-night cycle, I expect there to be a sleep mechanic, but there's not always one. Some games just have a day-night, and I'm like, you went right by me. Like Dune doesn't have, it has a day-night cycle and there's no sleep in it. And that was the one thing I was like, for a survival game, it's one of those, you would think that they would have it because you can actually have like bedding and things that you can put down.
Am I about to make myself sound really fucking stupid? Isn't it a multiplayer game?
It's a single player with like a lot of MMO elements. So
oh, well, that's why there's no rest then.
Well, right.
Because you can't keep time in your world. Yeah.
Well, right.
You can't manipulate the time on the server, so sleeping would be really weird.
I'm just gonna.
You would sleep in real time.
It's kind of like people that are awake during the night and sleep during the day. I mean, you could still make it happen because you could have your own cutscene.
I don't know what that's about.
Yeah. You could still have your own cutscenes in the middle of the day, just whenever you choose to have your rest at the base or wherever you're at. I mean, then it could have like some cutscene mechanic, very similar to the Baldur's Gate thing. It's just this reset. But whatever. Yeah.
It is interesting because that's not something I've really thought about with my experience with Dune, is the fact that my character has been awake for 4 days, no negative consequences whatsoever. Meanwhile, I am dealing with a severe lack of hydration and like a very real world problem. But no, I've been awake since June. Don't worry about it.
I was on top of my base yesterday and I took a screenshot because I saw this guy take his dune buggy out to where one of the space, because you have these random crashes of spaceships and you can loot off of them. I said, that's pretty risky. Yeah, I was like on top of my roof doing some stuff. I was just remodeling it a little bit. I saw him go out there. I'm like, all right, more power to you, And sure enough, I see him running because I can't hear all the like rumbles that he hears at the surface level. And I see him running back to his buggy, and I see this worm come out like 40 feet in the air and like make his way towards him. And I see him get in his buggy, and he's like trying to go as fast as he can. And sure enough, he gets eaten by it. I took a screenshot of it, but I saw it was like this whole thing right in front of me.
I love the idea that Legion's there playing Dune, and all he wants to do is home improvement and nap.
I just imagine
my father's retirement simulator. It's so good.
I just imagine Legion sitting in a still suit on a rocking chair on a porch, watching somebody get eaten by a sandworm.
Yeah.
Rub some dirt on it. You're fine, boy.
Yeah, but Banana is on my server. I told him what server and siege I'm at, and he has yet to visit me. But yeah, if you come to my base,
I have made almost no progress.
Yeah.
Just got over here.
If you come to my base, it's a nice base. Very nice.
I just finished the tutorial 2 days ago, where they're like, okay, now you're not locked to all of this stuff that we've been like handcuffing you to. Go and actually play the game. And Legion's like, still haven't seen Banana.
Yeah. You're welcome to try.
Why didn't you go and visit?
I can go visit him. Sure.
Why didn't you?
I can. I don't know where he's at. I don't know when he's online.
I'm in the beginning area where you start. Yeah.
Okay. I go that way. Yeah. I'll head that way.
Jump for the worms.
No, I got an ornithopter. We're good.
Yeah, I know what that is.
Yeah. But anyway. Well, I appreciate everybody being here. Hopefully everybody got a good night's rest from listening to us today. And if you have any suggestions for Banana to go to sleep, I'm pretty sure he has not tried any of them. Put them in the comments.
Please don't. You mentioned that you have insomnia to anyone and they suddenly become a sleep expert. Oh, have you tried this? Yes, I've been awake for 36 years. I've tried everything.
Competitive orgies. Have you tried?
I haven't tried that.
I'm on my way.
I don't want to try that.
Do the sign off. We can't stop until you do the sign off.
Legion is like in charge of the timing of all of these episodes. Like he'll start whenever the hell he wants to and we just adapt. He'll end whenever the hell he wants to. But you made that comment and Legion's just like, we're going to sit in awkward silence.
Well, thank you, AMKomnenos, BananaHammockRepublic, the sleepless BananaHammockRepublic, and myself, Legion. And we talked about sleeping in games, and hopefully we'll get some sleep for Banana. And we'll check you guys later. Bye-bye.